Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Energy Gal podcast. I am Lisa, intuitive healer and spiritual guide, and I am so excited to be able to share our guest today. I've created this podcast to be encouraged and inspired by people's stories of triumph through adversity. I know myself, I was swimming in the deep end of a lot of fear for many years, fear of rejection and abandonment. I had people pleasing and anxiety, disordered eating, a lack mentality, and truly a steeped victimhood mentality. And what began to happen for me is that I started hearing people's stories. And two things started occurring within me as I heard people's stories. The first one was I realized for the first time, it's not just me. I am not the only one who's experienced deep heartache and disappointment, grief, loneliness, or despair. That was huge for me to know I wasn't on my own in that. But the second thing is I started realizing that there is a way out of that. You didn't have to stay in that place. Now, the way out was in and through, but at least I came to start to understand that. So I couldn't wait to create a platform to be able to share with you the people in my life that I have been meeting that have been inspiring and encouraging me. So today we're going to meet with a friend of mine who I first met about 6 months ago. And immediately I just clicked with his energies. He is an ex-pro hockey player, which by his confession, he says it was very strong masculine energies, a lot of fighting, a lot of physical, a lot of anger. And this was his lifestyle. This is what he knew. This is what was accepted. This is what was expected even. But deep within him, there was this little bit of a niggle of an artist, just wanting to be born, to be birthed, to be seen, to be acknowledged, and to be held well. Now, this may be the creative, maybe possibly more feminine aspect of him. What he unpacks for us today is his dark night of the soul when it comes to walking through, going from this deep masculine energy, which he says was also toxic at times, through to exploring this other aspect of himself so that he comes into this beautiful godlike balance of masculine and feminine. Well, without further ado, let me introduce to you to my friend, Mike Wills. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Oh my gosh.
Truly
Well,
appreciate it.
I need to let our listeners know that yesterday Mike and I met and we chit-chatted for a good hour and a half, after which I realized I had never pressed record. So we did not actually record our conversation. I wrote to him and almost immediately he said to me, I mean, it was just incredible, his grace. He said, oh, well, that conversation then must have just been meant for you and me. Do you want to meet again tomorrow then? So you have to understand this guy is a gracious dude for sure. And I'm so thankful for him.
Well,
I
thank
want to
you.
start off, Mike, by, we hear this phrase, dark night of the soul. And I just don't know if not everybody understands what it is. And so I was wondering from your perspective, if you could unpack a little bit of what does it mean to experience the dark night of the soul? I mean, it's a big deal. And I want to suss it out just a little bit.
Yeah. To me, the dark night of the soul is actually facing all the hiddenness and the darkness and shadows and the stuff you do not want to tell anyone. And you have to face it within that season, whether it's months or years or periods of time throughout your life. It's pretty much light being shone upon your darkness that has to come out of you. And it's all through love and probably the most excruciating pain you'll ever go through, but it's the
So are you
best,
saying that it's
worst.
not just some kind of emotional thing, but this is when you experience a dark night of the soul, it's spiritual in the fact that it is body,
Yeah.
soul, spirit. It's the
Yeah.
whole package, baby.
Yeah. It's the whole thing. It's so encompassing at times, and you you think, I don't know how you're going to get through it, or how am I going to get through it, and you essentially do. Um,
I noticed that you use the word through.
yeah,
It's, you have to go through it. That's the trick.
literally have to go through it. You can't
There's
dart
no
around.
bypassing.
There's no running. I've ran from it about 3 times, I think, and then um, God, source, light said to me, "We have to do this now, or otherwise you'll never get it." And I didn't know what was happening at the time until months later. Then
I
it
think that
started.
that's the way it is with Dark Night of the Soul, is
Yeah.
that you don't exactly know what's going on until it's
Yeah.
done or you're almost all the way done. That's how it was for me.
Yeah. And if you try to run from it and you go years down the road, it just compounds even worse. So you get like a double whammy, or 10
Just
times.
do it now.
If you're going into it, go through it. And it is the worst pain at the start. And then you get into this Kundalini awakening, spiritual awakening, into God's source union and one with yourself. And it's all within. It has nothing to do with any external masculine force of looking on the outside of you. It's all this feminine energy. It's all within. And that's where Christ has said in parts of the Bible, and I get to paraphrase that, as when you seek and you knock and you find, it's all
Oh,
internal within you. So it's
oh.
to me, that's the true essence of, as soon as you sit with your own thoughts and your own mind and your own emotions,
Mm.
that's when it starts to really go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's what it was, such an intense journey, and I'm glad I went through it to awaken into love. And I actually finally, I get to say truly within my heart, I actually love myself, because
Wow.
there's parts of me that I couldn't accept, especially when I was younger and playing hockey. I never loved myself truly, um, because I didn't know what love was, or, or existed. I always had this performance-based mindset of, if I perform really well, then, and work really hard, then I must be loved. And a lot of people go through that throughout this lifetime, and they have to learn that. But we all face it in different ways of programming, through our parents and through athletic or artistry, or these forms where we're, if we do well, then we're loved and appreciated by affirmations of good job,
Mm,
or thank you, or whatever, right? So we receive that in our mind subconsciously, going, if I do the work, then they must love me. Where Christ actually said, you don't have to do anything.
mm,
We I love you no matter what.
mhm,
Even if you're dying on your bed facing your emotions, I
mhm,
love you.
mhm.
Like,
Even
you don't
if
have
you
to.
have screwed it up worse than you
Yeah,
could possibly ever imagine, the
absolutely.
love does not decrease at all.
No, absolutely not. It
And your
does.
worthiness doesn't decrease at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I the hard part was actually sitting there with him in silence, with no one around, no one to come to my aid. And he's saying, you must deconstruct and decrease so I can increase in you and move forward into a love and a light, and a vibration, a frequency that you can hold and touch others.
Well,
And
you're becoming who you really are, which is the
yeah,
Christ.
yeah,
It is the Christ consciousness. That is your true identity. And
yeah,
what he was asking you to release was anything that wasn't him or
absolutely.
it. We just say
Yeah,
him, her, but anything that wasn't your true identity. But boy,
yeah.
I'll tell you, the ego holds on tight because that's what we've come to know as ourselves.
Yeah, our ego protects us, and that's its
Of
main job.
course. Of
So
course.
what
That's why I
happens
always
is,
tell people don't try to kill the ego. For heaven's sakes, it's only trying to protect you.
yeah,
But be
yeah,
in conversation
Yeah.
and question and be curious what it is that you're thinking.
Yeah. And really, once the triggers or the
Mm,
a rise of emotion comes
mm,
up, feel it
yeah.
and walk through
Oh,
it and really embrace that, whether it's spiritual, emotional, soul splits, childhood wounds or traumas that you faced, programs, go within, start meditating, start acting on bringing in your higher self, which is you, to that teenager or childhood
oh, come on.
that with Christ and heal yourself and bring it back into oneness in with
Mm,
that's
mm,
union. That's union
yeah.
with God.
Yeah.
Um,
Allowing yourself to
feel it.
feel.
Yeah.
Feel those feelings. I had read somewhere that if you really did allow yourself to spend 10 full minutes feeling whatever feeling is coming up, it
Yeah.
probably would end by the end of those 10 minutes. We
Yep.
only let ourselves feel for about 17 seconds and then we're right back on our phone, you know?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so we only skim off the top little bit and all this other is still underneath there.
Yeah.
And if it's anger or if it's self-loathing or if it's any of the different forms of fear, if we're
Yeah.
just skimming the top off,
Yeah.
and then pushing it back down or becoming numb or distracted, that's when it continues to compound,
Yes.
and
Absolutely. And like I said, I ran away from my uh first two Dark Night of the Souls, I believe. I was when I had my concussions in hockey through college and then pro, and I had to retire in the pro one. I believe I was meeting the Dark Night of the Soul. Um, and I got so scared because I had to face myself and I wasn't ready in my ego and in my pride or my toxic masculinity self. I got to a point where I would heal and just be toxic again in that working out environment, being a hockey player and moving forward, or feeling the emotions at the surface and then running away from it and go getting a job or finding it out like out there in the world.
mm,
It was only till the third time when Spirit said, "We have to do this now." I still remember I was with my twin flame at the time. Uh, we first met each other, and I remember being at her sister's pool, and this voice came down, and I recognized this voice because he said to me at 5 years old, "You will lead nations," and that's the voice, the same voice that said, "We have to do this now,
wow,
otherwise you will not get it. You will not move forward." And
wow,
so it came upon me, and you want to yell out to the sky and go, why, like, why are you doing this now? Right? Like, I'm just feeling so happy within myself. Why are you about to do something and
mm,
shift my life? And people, if you said that, they would look at you like, are you crazy? Like, why are you talking to the sky? And months later, things happened. Separation came into play with
mm,
with my twin flame, and that's when I tried to do the toxic masculinity thing again.
mm,
And the Dark Night of the Soul happened, where God sat me down, like pretty much seized my back, and I was in bed for about 70 days straight,
mm,
dealing with my emotions.
mm,
And then the synchronicities and the deja vus and the remembering who you are and coming back into union within yourself of how you're designed and how you're created as an artist or whoever you are. That's when it starts to unfold and starts to go on this really wild journey of following the white rabbit, I call it, to
right,
consciousness. So
right,
that's essentially what it is.
mm,
So
mhm,
it's meeting yourself and how you were actually designed.
right. Before all of the other
Yeah.
fear came in.
Yeah.
Yeah, fear in
Yeah.
all of its different forms. That's why I
Yeah.
think I always tell people we need to be curious,
Mhm.
but we also need to be very compassionate with ourselves because we really are doing the best that we know how. And so is
Yeah.
everybody else around us. But then
Yeah.
we also need to be courageous because there's going to come a time when we have to
Yeah.
make a choice and, decide which way we're going to go with it. And it is very brave indeed
Yeah.
to travel down the road, very often less traveled when it comes to saying, I'm going to go where few people have been before, and that is into the depths of my own soul, to be able to make friends with myself and to start seeing the truth of what's actually going on.
Yeah. It's so funny that we search throughout this whole lifetime and it's all
Out
here.
there, out there, out there,
Out
and all
there to hit
along it's
yeah,
been,
it's all within you. Like
yeah,
material things, the aspirations, the life goals, the money, the success, the yada yada yada, you name it, it's all within yourself. And fear has a huge part in that. Fear of lack, fear of finances, fear of all these things. So you go out and search for that safety net where
yes, absolutely.
basically spirit will deconstruct all of that and take it all away. I remember going through the dark night and trying to get these jobs and I never got paid. I lost money. I lost my apartment because fear of
Yeah,
finances were one of my crutches and
mhm,
he was making me face it all.
yeah,
I was
yeah,
losing everything when I experienced like another part that I actually had to heal as well. We
right.
kind of touched upon this through hockey, and um it was probably one of the toughest things to swallow at the time, but spirit kind of said you need to let that go. And I think throughout this whole lifetime, I attached to things, attached to identities or
Yeah,
items
you had
or
said a lot of your journey has been surrender.
is surrender and letting go of things, and that is huge for me. Letting go of people that have hurt me in the past, who, um, whether it's, you know, family members, exes, friends, uh, past teammates, high school experiences.
What about forgiveness? Has forgiveness worked its way into any part of the dark night of the soul, or no? Not for you.
Um, oh, hugely. Forgiveness is the one of the key components where it will expedite things. So once you're experiencing a trigger or a programming or a trauma, and whoever did that to you, if you can actually learn to forgive through the heart, and that's what Jesus talked about, if you forgive, you will actually embody the state of letting it go, and you'll start to vibrate and become more in love.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think
and
it's
not
something
in
that you
love
can.
yourself, but like
Right,
love radiating
right,
everywhere. So
right.
that's where
On my journey of forgiveness, I know that you can't trump up forgiveness. You can't make yourself forgive, but what you can say is,
the
it's
process.
I want to come to a place of forgiving because it's really heavy carrying around bitterness and upset.
Yeah,
And I think that forgiveness really helps release victimhood mentality.
absolutely.
When you can look at that person and honestly say,
Yeah,
I don't know how, but you clearly are just doing the very best that you know how.
yeah,
That was your best. How could
yeah,
I ask for anything more? And I
yeah,
think that expectations. I did a talk today on expectations,
yeah.
and just talking about our disappointment is nestled in there with all the expectations we have that this is the way it should be. But who's to say it should be that way?
Yeah, it could be perspective. It could be like it's the way you think it is, right?
Right.
So
Right. So it really is
yeah,
allowing your mind to be changed too. Take captive your thought,
yeah,
and say, is this Christ consciousness or is this my pain
yeah,
speaking to me?
yeah.
You know?
Because you have the thought process of either choosing how painful it is or choosing not how painful the situation is, right? And usually it comes from programming back in your childhood between early ages, whether even ancestral,
Oh,
if
absolutely. In your DNA,
yeah,
down in your genes.
if that grandfather, grandmother, or great whatever didn't deal with it, then it gets passed
Guess
down.
what? You bet. That's why
You-
when people come to me for coaching and they'll say, I want to know where this came in, I'll say, oh, please don't do that.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it could have been great great grandmother and it's
yeah,
passed down through
yeah,
your genes. And it is a victimhood mentality that has always been there. Just break the chains, man. Don't worry. That's a lot of energy and time that is wasted. Break
yeah,
the chains now and then go have a party, for God's sake. Get into Wonderland. If you're going to go
yeah,
down the rabbit hole, find Wonderland,
yeah, yeah.
you know?
Yeah, that's basically what Spirit said to me during the Dark Night is after I actually could walk again and get out and go to like little coffee places and experience like life. I was so numb and so dark that he pretty much said follow the white rabbit, and it
Mhm.
led me down to uh so many experiences with just seeing a white rabbit. Just and it essentially was like I'm bringing you out of the matrix into yourself and the
Oh
way
my
you're
God, I
designed,
love it.
so you can actually go paint, you know?
And I love when spirit is literal, like
Yeah,
follow the right rabbit. And
yeah,
then you actually saw white
yeah.
rabbit on
White
someone's t-shirt,
rabbits
didn't
everywhere.
you?
Yeah, yeah.
I love
It
it when it's
started off,
literal.
yeah, it started off with White Rabbit Coffee Shop, it was called.
Oh,
Uh, and then a bunch of other experiences happened when I went to Edmonton, and
synchronicities.
synchronicities. I even have it on my hat here. It says "Follow the White Rabbit."
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's it's always like if you can get out of the Matrix, that's and the movie The Matrix essentially it starts with the White Rabbit tattoo of like getting out of the 9 to 5 because that's where God
Mhm.
doesn't want you to be. He wants you where you are actually called to do your
Your,
design and your
yeah,
passion.
your
So,
passion. Because then
yeah.
it doesn't feel like work. It's just
No.
bubbling up out of you. It's the
Yeah.
godness just coming out all over the place.
Yeah, and once you do your passion, you radiate joy and enlightenment, and everything flows effortlessly. But our fear limits us, so we have to l- take our limitations off ourselves and just enjoy the process. So,
You know, I was getting
uh,
together. I totally agree. I was getting together with a friend of mine today and Jackie, and we were
yeah,
talking about how the dark night of the soul, which I think a lot of people have, certainly she and I have, as well as you,
yeah,
and how the way that we triumphed through it
yeah,
may be changing in this next season, in
yeah,
that it's not so much having to do so much shadow work as it is just acknowledging
yeah,
I have some shadow work to do. And then you get with other people who have done their shadow work and are walking in their identity.
yeah,
And just by you being with them
yeah,
and willing to be open and with them, you kind of catch the wave. And it doesn't mean you don't do shadow work, but it's like this, it's fast. It
yeah,
isn't this long, prolonged thing like freaking A, man. It was like 3 years for me and then 2 years of Dark Night of the Spirit. Give me a
yeah,
freaking break. I don't
yeah.
want that for anybody else,
I know,
you
I know.
know?
If I can help somebody out, it's to make it easier. It'd be way easier for
Well, you
the
know,
whole.
I'm talking all over you. I'm just
No, no.
I just get with you and I get so excited. I think of those two guys, the two sons of the father that
Yes.
Jesus was talking about. And the one went off and, shot the wad and was with the pigs. The other one stayed there the whole time. The other one, and he had to go down in the destitutes of shithole. Then he
Yeah.
was able to come on back with his changed mind and say, okay, dad, I soon be a
Leave.
servant. And his dad's like, no, 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 you're my child. I wouldn't have you be my servant. For God's sake, let's have a party. Well, the
Yeah.
older son says, well, what about me, dude? I've been following the rules and regulations. And the dad says, you could have party with me anytime you wanted. I
Yeah.
think that's the season we're coming into, is understanding, yes, you can, like you and me and Jackie, get to the point where you need to go through all of your shadow work.
Yeah.
But what about having a party and then, being one of those older sons who can just come in and just quickly move through your trauma, your pain, your
Yeah.
ache to come into truth?
Yeah. Absolutely. I even expedited my Dark Night of the Soul through a friend who was a coach at the time. and he pretty much helped me through the process
Mm,
because I wasn't understanding that other aspects of God were still in other things that I didn't agree with. So I was much in like religious programming and blah 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 through life, and it never really sat with me right, that stuff. It always was fake to me. But then like I started seeing through different frequencies of like tarot cards and other stuff that actually resonated with my heart. It was actually making sense at the time, and then synchronicities of numbers. And so this coach at the time was explaining what it was doing. It was
mm,
deconstructing and breaking down all your
mm,
mindsets so you actually knew nothing. So you have
mm,
a clean slate, white as snow, with
mm,
Christ to actually elevate you in a
mm,
better sense. And to
mm.
me, he helped me, I would say, within a year and a half, I stopped going through the dark night. I expedited it.
Nice.
He
Got
brought
it.
me a full splits.
Wow.
He
Wow.
did all this work when it came up, when it was coming up in me. I would call him at just random times going, why is this happening? It's
Mm.
because your inner child is screaming at you, going, I need to come back to
I
you.
need a hug. I need
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
rocked. I
basically.
need to be
Need
told I'm
hug.
awesome.
Yeah. So
I need to be told I'll be protected so I don't have to protect myself.
yeah. And I said, how do you know all this? And he said, well, I walked through it for 4 years and nobody helped me. So he's there to help others walk through that as well. And um
Good. We'll have to invite him to our party.
absolutely. I think that's what should happen is people should be celebrated after this new awakening into alignment and union within yourself. We should all party together because
Oh my God.
God having our human experience, because we're all fractalized from him,
Yep.
we should have a party. Like
Absolutely.
it. So yeah, it is such, like I said, the best worst experience you can ever have. And it's
Best worst experience.
yeah, because you're on this spiritual path that always led to you and you just didn't see it or weren't aware of it until until you wake up, whenever that is. So
So if someone were to say, where are you going on this dark
yeah,
night of your soul? You'd say, back to myself.
back to me within. Yeah.
I feel like I'm going to cry a little bit because that's
Yeah.
that's really good.
Yeah. And
I'm
it too,
going back home.
yeah, basically. And people are not aware of it because
Mm.
they don't want to do the inner work, because it takes emotions, it takes crying, screaming,
Well,
punching.
they call it work. It's work.
It's
It's
work.
uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable because no one teaches you how to deal with it, in the sense of soon as you're out for like 3 4 days and you don't know why, you're hurting or sore, tired, or you can't wake up, you just released all the trauma in your vagus nerve, in your body, and all the muscle tissues and fascia.
Right,
You
right,
just release that out of
right,
you.
right.
You feel the
Yeah.
toll
Right.
physically.
That's what I would love to be able to host retreats
Yeah,
where, people come in and for that specific reason and you do things like Epsom salt baths and you get
yeah,
massages and you do things that are very body based,
yeah,
stretches and different yoga and having guided meditations because this helps move the energies so that maybe on the way out it doesn't have to hurt quite as much,
yes,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So where
I've
do you think you are now when it comes to your journey? How are things going now?
yeah, I'm more at peace with myself, more
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, it feels so good within, this is 2.5, almost 3 years out of it. Um, it feels like it's about to unfold for me here. In a sense of, yes, I have to do the work. Yes, I have to trust the process, but there's more that's coming. And now I'm just in joy that I'm actually myself a bit more, that I get to go to the next step. I just opened up a studio in Hamilton, Ontario. There are tons of
His
opportunities.
art is amazing. It's amazing, people. It's
Yeah,
amazing. I'll
yeah.
have a link below because it's just,
There's so many opportunities coming my way. I just have to say yes to them all. And again, I've lost everything. I'm back here for the third time going, I don't know how this is going to work out, but it's going to work out in faith because I just have to go and do this. This is the fork in the road of, do you go right or do you go left? Do you stay stagnant in a 9 to 5 job and be stagnant and not learn or expand,
and
or
not
you go do
and
this?
not feel alive in your
Yes.
soul.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
should wake up every morning and be like, holy shit, I'm still here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Freaking
Yeah.
A, yeah.
Yeah. That's basically, I've taken that for granted, granted all my life. Like waking up going, oh, I'm here again. Like, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? I've
Oh, I
always,
sure do. I sure
so
do.
yeah, it's such a transition mindset from going, oh, I hate being here to I actually enjoy life now.
Yeah, I
Actually,
think that it's important that when you talk about the dark night of the soul and the shadow work that happens when you open yourself up to saying, I'm ready and willing to be healed.
yeah,
And I don't know what that looks like, but I'm ready and I'm willing to be led down the rabbit hole of being healed.
yeah,
Is that what you have to keep in mind is that you're being led to Wonderland. You're
yep,
being led to some place that is so freaking awesome deep within you that you will finally come face to face with yourself, your real self, who you will be madly, deeply in love with and be like, oh my God, I've been looking for you all of my life.
yeah,
So people need to realize that that is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Yes,
yeah,
there's work, but it's
mhm,
work for yourself.
yeah,
And on
absolutely.
behalf of the collective, because when one person heals, a lot of people, we all heal.
Yeah, it
When one
vibes.
person is in pain and in fear, we're all still in pain and in fear in some point, because like you said, it's God fractaled out billions of times,
Yeah,
experiencing itself.
yeah. And, and I didn't understand that until it made sense and I was aware of it mentally going, oh, this is a bigger plan than just me or it. Like God has to heal himself or itself by separating himself, coming back into union with himself.
Mm,
That's the full cycle to
mm,
the planet, essentially.
mm,
Um, which is a crazy thing to think about because it doesn't make sense, and yet that's God.
mm,
Nothing makes sense
mm,
following his White Rabbit experience. Like,
mm.
um, I just went to London Fashion Week with a friend who designs hats. That's one of the hats I'm wearing. And I went there and I guess sold 4 paintings, and I possibly am working with a gallery in London. Like the potential of just saying yes, sure, why not,
Yep.
and it leading to something greater, because that was so revitalizing for my body physically and spiritually to radiate out going, I'm meant to do this. I'm actually an artist. I am actually not a hockey player anymore. I'm not a hockey player artist. I'm a artist. I'm actually supposed to do this in
Well,
life.
you are an aspect of God who got a chance to
Right.
experience being a hockey player and
Yeah.
dive deep into masculine energies. And now you are an aspect of God who can take all the beautiful aspects, all the beautiful frequencies of this masculine energy, because masculine energy is freaking awesome, and
Yeah.
put that into your paintings and your creativity and really balance the right and the left hemispheres of your brain
Yeah.
and really own being fully in your masculine and fully in your feminine and allowing any toxicity on either end to be
Yeah.
released as you just completely accept
Mhm.
and embrace both I was going to say both aspects, both flavors
Yeah.
of yourself.
Yeah. And it's really cool to experience that both sides, because the Dark Knight still had to get rid of all my masculine traits into the feminine, which I'm still don't think I'm quite fully into the feminine still. There's still more to improve. But like you said, there's two flavors that I have to balance. I am an October baby, so the balance is
Are
right
you a
there.
Libra? Are you a Libra, son?
Yeah, so I have to balance to become at ease and surrender to the process of
Yeah.
what he has for me.
I have a
Because
son who's a Libra, a son who's a Libra.
yeah,
And he's a Libra rising and a Libra sun. And
yeah,
his North Node is in Libra. So, oh my God, this guy's Libra. And he is just the most amazing balance of masculine and feminine, both listener and speaker. He's just the embracer and the provider, the nurturer and the boundary guy. It's magical to see it in action.
that's really cool.
Yeah,
I commend him for being that way because my scales were pretty tipped. I had nothing I wanted to do with the feminine. I was abused all my life, being called very feminine because I dressed differently
sure.
or
People didn't understand.
they didn't understand me, but I had this physical look of this masculine presence.
Yeah, it must have been
People were
confusing. Yeah.
jealous. Yeah, it was exhausting at times, but it was meant for a reason. It was
Hmm.
back into the divine. So
Yeah.
it it essentially, and like you said, that the balance of something meeting a whole other aspect that people will not experience, or some will, is that twin flame, two souls, but they're the same soul, and
Mm.
how
Hmm.
balance, having
Hmm.
one that's feminine, one that's more masculine, and they're trying to figure it out.
Mm.
That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Experience too is beyond what I even thought was
Mm.
possible with God,
Mm.
and yet it was it. Like,
Mm.
so to bring that back into balance too is going to be the most craziest thing for me because I'm still working on that side as well
Mhm.
of it, but it's me being the feminine side to balance it out. And I'm
Mm. Mm.
meditation and breath work is
Mm.
still trying to find that balance to
Mm.
surrender the process and let go of
Mhm.
it.
So we've got about a minute or so left. What is the last, if you have one last little thing to share with our listeners, what would you offer them? What would you say? I mean, you've said so much. It's been amazing.
If you have that spirit talking to you and that little whisper, that little intuition to follow this process and go within, do it.
If you
It's
feel like
worth
you're being led down the rabbit hole, go.
yeah, go. Um, because you don't know where you're gonna lead to, and it's gonna be your higher self. It's gonna be this beautiful dance that it's good, bad, and the ugly and amazing because you don't know where it's gonna go, but you just can't stay stagnant in your 9 to 5 job that you just go to every day, and it's hard to wake
So
up.
be on the adventure. Be on the
Absolutely.
adventure. If it's
Absolutely.
risky,
Yeah.
get with a group of peeps
Yeah.
and experience it and maybe give it a try. Mike, thank you. Thank you for all you've shared with us. It was amazing. I'd love to have you back on again, talk a little bit more about your art, because the way that you make art is mind
Yeah.
blowing. So I want to talk more about your art. So thank you so much. Listeners, thank you for hanging with us, and we'll see you again very soon. Take care, everybody, and here's a hug.